Hunter Biden is going on a warpath on the one-year anniversary of his dad, Joe Biden, dropping out of the 2024 race. The felon's son raged against George Clooney and other Democrats who he believes undermined Pops.
Him and everybody around him. George Clooney is not a actor. He is a I don't know what he is. He's a brand. James Carville, who hasn't run a race in 40 years. David Axelrod, who had one success in his political life, and that was Barack Obama. And that was because of Barack Obama. Pod Save America guys, who were junior speechwriters in, on Barack Obama's Senate staff, who have been dining out on the relationship with him for years, making millions of dollars. What influence does Jake Tapper have over anything? He has the smallest audience on cable news.
I have a headache from all the beeping. Hunter also flying off the handle at the Americans who want to deport the millions of illegals his dad let into the country.
People are really upset about illegal immigration. You. How do you think your hotel room gets cleaned? How do you think you got food on your table? Who do you think washes your dishes? Who do you think does your garden? Who do you think is here by the sheer just grit and will? If I became president, I would pick up the phone and call the president of El Salvador and say, you either send them back or I'm going to invade.
Okay, and while Hunter rages, we are learning how the DNC did an audit after action review of why Democrats lost the 2024 election, but conveniently doesn't mention Joe and Kamala. Well, Greg, I guess it's good that Hunter Biden is raging on a podcast instead of going to a rager in his carpet.
I have so many mixed feelings. First, he's talking about illegals. I seem to remember from a police report, he tried to get the police off his back over a missing gun by implicating illegals. Like he said, those guys over there, they're illegal. So he's not a saint when it comes to there. But Democrats, if you listen to him, what has Democrats been trying to do? All 6 months, try to be authentic. They try to fake swear, do a lot of theater. That's real swearing. You got to give it to him. That guy is authentic. He's the real deal. And dare I say, I like him. I get that he's defending Joe, and Jim, his brother, right?
Yeah.
It's his dad. And I disagree with him on that. But he isn't wrong when he's going after the establishment. And I'm thinking Democrats, especially Carville. Carville said that they're looking for their savior. It's this guy. He's the most direct, honest person the party has. He's very likable. And you have to understand, you can say, oh, but he's a drug addict. You have to understand about drug addicts and alcoholics. That guy managed to make millions and millions of dollars while high. And that's the secret, is that you have to be super competent when you're a junkie or else people will disown you. So he actually works extra hard. If he's truly in recovery, he will be legitimately dangerous, just like RFK, who's beholden to no ideology whatsoever. That's my theory. I'm going with it. And you're welcome on my show.
There you go. Good. Open invite. So, Jesse, I actually think he has a point with a lot of this. I mean, they totally knifed Joe Biden and said he couldn't win and tried to push him out for a month. And then when he didn't want to go, they kept leaking stories. And Nancy Pelosi came around and, Clooney wrote that op-ed that finally got the ball moving. I mean, he's not wrong when he says they really didn't do much service.
When Roman emperors used to murder their political rivals, Katie, they used to not just murder the rival, they'd murder the entire family. Because if you leave the son alive, he'll spend the rest of his life seeking revenge. And they may have killed off Joe Biden, but Hunter Biden is very much alive. And make no mistake, everything he's saying is exactly what Joe Biden is thinking. This is Dark Brandon Jr. Greg's right. This is the guy the memo was about. This is a guy who doesn't give an F. He's macho. He's bold. To say that they're going to invade El Salvador to bring back the bad hombres, that's like left-wing Trump. This is what they've been looking for. Gavin Newsom doesn't have an ounce of that kind of swagger, because that is real.
I agree.
We are in agreement there. The problem with the Democratic Party, the autopsy, whatever you want to call it, they don't even want to talk about Biden. They don't want to see Joe. They don't want to see Hunter. But this guy is going to be on a revenge tour, the likes of which we've never seen, and his dad is writing a book. So they're never going to get rid of him. The only way they do it, Tom Homan has to deport the Biden family to go spend time with Irish Rosie. And I bet the Democrats would say, Tom, get him out.
Or they could call Hillary Clinton. I heard she knows a few people.
That's true.
Harold, on this autopsy report, can Democrats really move forward if they don't acknowledge Kamala and Joe's participation in the last election? Because people see it as a cover-up, including in the party. Or do you think they can just move forward without mentioning them?
We should just move forward and be honest. Now, I would remind everybody around the table, when President Trump ran in 2016, there had been an autopsy done by the Republican Party saying that they needed to appeal more after the loss to Barack Obama, that they needed to appeal more to African-American and Hispanic voters across the country. And President Trump, when he came down the escalator, had a very, very different theory of the case as he talked about illegals here and rapists and thugs. And the Republican Party exploded. A lot of them, and I'll be nice about it, exploded in curiosity. Many of them exploded in anger. He connected. He knew what was going on in the country. People who win presidential races connect with voters. Now, I hope that I'm never in a position where my son has to defend me like Hunter did, but I admire someone who defends his dad. I defend my dad that way as well, and anyone that has a kid would want their son or their daughter defending them like this. But I would remind everybody, including Hunter, 2 or 3 other things. One, had we had a different opinion on the border, we might have won. We didn't. We were wrong on the border, and that was the most explosive issue in the campaign. Little girls, little boys playing in little girls' sports really, really rankled a lot of Americans, and we had no good answer on it. I would remind everyone that when Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump debated, Mr. Biden didn't look like he knew where he was. But that he was able to recover from had he done a good interview with George Stephanopoulos, and he didn't. So Democrats said, you can't do this. We need another candidate. Then you had Ms. Harris. Ms. Harris made the mistake of going on The View and being asked a very basic question in the middle of an election that was about change, and was asked, what would you have done differently? Anything you would do differently if had you been president? She said, I can't think of anything we've done differently. In a change election, her name could have been Trump, Pence, Vance, Rubio, or Clinton. If you say that and you're running and you are what's happening that people don't like, you're not going to be voted for. Donald Trump lost in 2020 because people wanted to move on from that. So as much as I love the energy and the passion, there's some basics in politics. You have to connect with people. You have to represent people. If Mr. Biden had done what he said he was going to do, would be a generational president and pass it on, we wouldn't be having the conversation we are right now. So as much as I admire the fire and the passion and the defense of your dad, at the end of the day, the voters spoke.
Sandra, there's a lot of passion.
Passion. If I was cussing around the table, it'd be passion.
Not just once, like every 2 seconds.
I'm a diplomat, Sandra. I'm a diplomat.
I just keep thinking about the setup they did for the interview with this, YouTuber. He's got over 3 million subscribers. I guess he's pretty popular. And Hunter Biden, apparently he met him, had a good connection with him. They sat down for hours, but they sat in nature. It's a beautiful scene.
Is it weird for you to see him with his clothes on?
White picket fence.
Nice change.
White picket fence. And then he goes off and just is screaming and cussing to the point where we can't even air it in its entirety. I'll just say this because I know we're short on time. And unless the autopsy report also looks back and says, okay, all the increased regulation over that period of time made it impossible for small businesses in this country to thrive, unless they acknowledge the canceling of all of those federal oil leases all over the country that led to your high gas prices, unless the autopsy looks back at the attacking of the rich that greatly employs the lower to middle class, the American people who voted for Donald Trump are going to say nothing has changed with the Democrat Party.
You know what this autopsy is like? It's like a celebrity autopsy when they cite the cause of death as heart disease, hypertension, blood clots, liver failure, but underneath it all is one cause, in the case like chronic lifelong alcoholism. There is an underlying cause to what they are identifying as the secondary causes, and it's always going to be this identity politics, which they weaponized into warfare.
Yeah, there's a policy problem. We will watch. All right, up next, the libs say democracy is dead because CBS dumped their $40 million loser, Stephen Colbert.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.